First of all, I want to say welcome back or to the channel. If this is your first time, I want to make sure that you guys are all subscribed to the channel. Right now we only have 166 subscribers and I feel like we can do a lot better in the next couple of months. So it's a very hot day here in Texas, and one of the things that I want to discuss today is a new vehicle for the channel. That's right, we've been talking about this. We've been saying we're going to go back and get another vehicle to add to the collection, and I haven't really been able to do that as efficiently as I've wanted to. So there's some vehicles that I've wanted that I had to let go of, like for instance the new Ford Bronco. I put out a post saying that I was going to attempt to get the new Ford Bronco and actually put in $100 toward it, and as luck would have it, I just didn't feel like it was the right financial move based off of the success of the channel at the time. We weren't really building that fast on the channel, so it didn't make sense to go in and drop that kind of money on a new vehicle right now with everything that I have going on. House payment, you know, so on and so forth. But I wanted to scale it down a bit. We brought in the Harley. The Harley's doing great. The content is actually growing, doing very well. So I'm really excited about that. We're actually hovering around 35 to 40 views of video at the height of it, right? So we need to get our view count up, get our subscriber count up, and then we can make better content. We're actually going to do something today that's going to be a little bit of fun. We're going to go back in time to the year 2003, and you might be asking, why in the world would we go back to the year 2003? Well, it all depends on your views, right? So in 2003, I was 20 years old. A really good friend of mine had recently picked up a very nice car that I really felt was underrated. In fact, when he told me what he got, I was actually kind of disappointed at what he got, because I was thinking to myself, why would you get one of those? They're ugly, they're not anything important, and that was where I left it, right? I just didn't feel like it was the right vehicle in my mind for him. But slowly but surely, riding around with him, being 20 years old, I don't believe I had a reliable vehicle at 20 years old. I was really doing any of my hanging out with him when I wasn't working, so anytime I was with him, he drove, I was obviously in the passenger seat of his car, and I began to fall in love with his vehicle. Just the interior, the look of it, and the things that he was doing to customize and mod his car made me really enjoy that vehicle that much more. So I started to kind of follow the vehicle, and that was when I made up my mind. I knew that if I was going to get my next vehicle, I wanted it to be a brand new vehicle. So I started looking at the same kind of vehicle that he had, same model, but not the same trim. So in a sense, I wanted something that was similar to his, something that we could work on together and modify together, but not be exactly the same, right? Meanwhile, I wanted to have the better vehicle. So I picked the vehicle. I knew exactly what I wanted, I knew the color that I wanted, and I knew exactly how I wanted to do it. And finally, I made the realization I just didn't have the credit or the money to be able to get the vehicle that I wanted at that specific time of my life. So I held on a little bit longer, and fast forward to 2005, when he calls me and he says, hey, I got something to show you. And I was like, tell me you didn't go get a new car. And he said, I did. And I was like, okay, well, what'd you get? So based off of the way that he said, you'll see it in a second, I kind of already started to realize he had went and got the exact car that I wanted. I had been talking about this car for the last 3 years. The only thing is, he didn't get the exact same color that I wanted. So it kind of made it a little bit different. But when he pulled up in that car and I saw it for the very first time, it blew my mind. I was very, very disappointed at first, but I quickly got over it when I got in the passenger seat and got to ride in his car. And through the next year, year and a half, he started modding the car, which made it more pleasurable for me because it was exactly what I wanted to do to mine. So it made me feel even better about him having the car and me getting to experience that raw feel of the car, driving around, racing, and doing all of the things that we did back in 2005, 2006. We had a ton of fun in that car until one day he was going to work and he crashed and he totaled the car, and it broke my heart. So without any more of the rambling, we're going to show you exactly what the next vehicle is on the channel and go into some of the details as to what's different about this car than what he had. like I said, back in 03, the Spec-V actually came out, had different wheels, had the same overall body lines, and everything was pretty much the same. 6-speed manual transmission was the only way you could get a Spec-V. But the SER came out with a automatic option with a 5-speed. So you could get the SER version with an automatic or a manual with a 5-speed. But when the Spec-V came out, only thing you could get was a manual gearbox with a 6th gear. So if you can recall, back in the early 2000s, a particular movie franchise came out that actually helped boost Nissan sales. One of the things that people wanted was the Nissan Skyline. The R34 gave Nissan more publicity. So Nissan had to quickly come up with something because the R34 was not available in North America. So what they came up with was this, the Nissan Sentra with a 6-speed manual gearbox with styling cues that are actually reminiscent of the R34. Just take a look at these headlights, for instance. The double setup really kind of speaks volumes with that black background. Really is inspired by the R34. And then if you also take a look at the back, you can clearly see that this year model Sentra also has kind of a double setup on the taillights, and also a little bit tinted, just to give it a bit of a sportier look. You've got the double tipped rear exhaust. That SER style exhaust was actually also inspired by the R34. Now this car obviously has some things that need to be done, but one of the things that you can clearly see that's different about this Nissan Sentra than a stock Nissan Sentra from 2005 are the side skirts, the wheels, the headlights, and the smoked taillights. And that's not even talking about the interior. Let's talk about some of the damage to this vehicle. You're pretty much seeing it as close to as is whenever I purchased it. The paint was in very, very big need of help. I actually went through and did a full clay bar on the entire car and actually waxed and buffed the car to bring back some of the shine. The paint was all dulled out. It's very, very difficult to see any mirrored reflection on any panel on the car. So naturally, now it looks a lot better. One of the things you can clearly see is there is some small damage as far as, I don't know if you can see that very clearly in the camera. There's a slight dent there. There's a few things wrong with the paint here on the rear passenger side of the vehicle. You can see somebody marked up the side of the car pretty bad. And of course, with this year model, you know you're gonna have these issues. The rear bumper is not exactly on good and secure anymore. Same thing with the front. And then we're gonna look at some of the little bit of damage here in the back. Clearly some hail damage here and there. Paint problems here and there, but along the trunk you can see the hail damage. It's bad. So I'm gonna have to get it somewhere and get it fixed. Right here next to the fuel filler, you can see there's a slight dent in the paint right in this area down here. So not too bad, but it needs to be popped back out. And then the biggest thing that I'm worried and concerned about are these dents on the top here of the door, because those dents are going to be extremely difficult to get out. The hood is just riddled with hail damage, as well as a crack on the windshield, very, very slight right above the windshield wipers. And if you look on the roof, it just looks like it was out in a golf field where it was just riddled with golf balls for God knows how long. So one of the biggest flaws with this particular vehicle was the top mounted cat, which is actually one part with the header coming down from the top of the motor. After so long of driving the vehicle at moderate speeds, the pre-cat would eventually begin to break away, and chunks of this pre-cat would get sucked into the motor, and it would cause catastrophic injury to the motor. So Spec-V owners had to come up with a way to get rid of that issue, and the way they got rid of that issue was to remove the top cat. Luckily, my car didn't have that. So in my effort to find a good car, I actually managed to find one that's in really, really great shape. One of the things that you're typically going to find if you're looking for a Nissan Sentra, whether it's an SER or a Spec-V or just a base model SE or a GXE or whatever it is that you're trying to find with the 03 to 06 Sentras, is this will a lot of times not work. And the problem is that you won't know this until you actually go to try to open it. Previous owners, the back the back brackets or the hinges will actually malfunction, or this clip latch problem will exist where this hook inside will break or this pin will fall out. So what they'll do is they'll actually glue it shut. So don't make the mistake of purchasing the car and that's glued shut, because if this is glued shut, you'll have to get the entire new bezel to go with it, not just the door. I actually managed to get one with a good console lid that latches and works perfectly. I even still have the stock SER mats inside the front driver and passenger side. The only thing that I've noticed that's missing on this car is the actual badge that shows you the gears on top of the shifter. But other than that, the door panels are in really great shape, front and back, other than this other side over here that has a little bit of damage that has to be fixed. But all in all, still having the seat in good shape. That black stitch with that netting on the top is actually kind of clean. I like it. Brings back memories. The seats are in great shape. There's just a little bit of wear here on the driver's side where the netting is beginning to kind of pull away, but it's not too bad. The car does have quite a few miles on it. Right now we're currently sitting at 192,867 miles. But for the most part, this vehicle is in great shape, but it burns a ton of oil. So that's something that you have to know about when you're getting into these cars. The bad thing is that you're gonna look to put in a quart of oil every week. And I'm not even exaggerating. I believe I purchased the car in April and I've already put in a ton of money on oil just for the duration of time that I've owned it. But it's so satisfying owning this car and driving it, just for the memories, that I don't think I could go back. So just going over some of the differences about this car. His car had a sunroof, mine does not. I didn't even realize there was a little bit of stain there. Huh. Anyway, so other than the sunroof, the only other things that are different about this car from his was the fact that his car came with the Brembo brake package as well as the audio system, which gave you a 8-inch subwoofer in the trunk. Mine doesn't have that option either. But all in all, I don't care. I love this car. It brings back memories, and each and every time I drive it, I think about a person who was like a brother to me who passed away in 2010. Some of the things that are obvious about this car that we need to go over. The car obviously doesn't have 380 horses. It's not supercharged, it's not turbocharged, and it's not gonna kill everything on the street in a street race. But sometimes you don't have to have that, especially not at the beginning. We can do some things with this car that's gonna be absolutely fun, and we can be moderate with it without having to go too far and do too much to get to it. I don't need 280, 300 horsepower in this car. From the factory, these Nissan Sentra Spec-Vs came with about 175 horsepower. Now I know what you're thinking. It doesn't mean that this is not a respectable car on the road. It's a very big sleeper, in fact. 175-ish horsepower out of a car this size, trust me, it walks some things. Every now and then I'll run into a Honda Civic from back in the early 2000s, and even some of them that are still relatively newer, I beat them hands down. Because the thing is, it's not just about what you're driving, it's about how you're driving it. Let's be real. I know as cliche as it sounds, a person in a Corvette's not gonna just beat a person in a Mustang. You still gotta be a good driver. A guy in the Mustang may know that Mustang better than anything he's ever driven before, and he can walk that Corvette, and he's a better driver. But if you put him in a straight line with no traffic, then yeah, the Corvette's supposed to win. It's destined to win. It's the way that it was built. This car's fun. It's a blast to drive. I enjoy the shit out of it. Just for little things like that. The sound of this car does it for me. And it has 6 gears. Too much fun, right? Welcome to Mexico, for those of you who have never been. It looks remarkably like Texas, and it's quite fun down here. You guys can see everything. That is an SS Camaro. Come on, Volkswagen. have enjoyed this ride along. This car may not be too special to everybody, but it's special to me because it brings back memories of a very good friend of mine who I lost in 2010. So every time I'm in this car, I think about him. It feels like he's here, feels like he's riding with me. And that's pretty cool, I like that. Make sure you guys like and subscribe, and we'll see you next time. Don't want me on video like wiping the sweat out of my face. Oh man, it's hot. Oh god, it's hot. Sweat so bad. Get the sweat out of my face. Get some air in here.